Good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry we're late. I have to show off my new present, so you can't really see it very well. But I have had a really pretty ugly white terry cloth kind of chunky robe for a lot of years, like, I don't know, 15 maybe. And I call it my middle-aged marshmallow robe because it makes me look about 3 inches wider on both sides. And now we've been watching Madam Secretary on Netflix, and she has this beautiful cashmere robe. So I said casually to Dr. Mary last week, I want a cashmere robe. What do you know? What showed up in the mail yesterday? So come on, it's so beautiful. I'm not gonna stand up and model it for you, but it's really beautiful. And it doesn't add 6 inches to my width. So thank you, Dr. Mary.
You're welcome.
I really love it.
I actually got it in case I forgot about it, and my plan was to hide it until the 31st of May and give it to you as a wedding anniversary. But
yeah,
Dana
I was home and got the mail.
Dana was home and got the mail. So.
Well, I love it, and it was a perfect April 12th present. So thank you, thank you. All right, today we are talking about change. So it's part of this Unlocking Your Creativity meditation that I'm doing with Oprah and Deepak Chopra. And I have to read you this sentence. The nature of life is change, yet the nature of human beings is to resist change. And I love that because we've probably talked about this before, but it bears repeating because what holds most of us up is a fear of change, because we go to worst case scenario. Well, if I do this, then these terrible things could happen. And I grew up in a household that could go from 0 to 60 on bad things almost instantly. Let me give you a perfect example. In October, Dr. Mary and I drove to Blackboard, which is out by Pelican Rapids, 60 miles from here, to have dinner, to celebrate paying off our house. And my mom knew that we were going to have dinner. And sometime during the dinner, I got 3 or 4 urgent texts from her.
I'd actually forgot about this.
And so I called her on the way home, and she said to me, "Oh, I'm so glad to hear from you. I just imagined a moose being in the road and you hitting a moose and you were probably dead." I mean, I'm not saying there aren't moose where we were. We didn't see any. And what a bizarre approach to take, to jump right to, well, I'm sure they hit a moose. I mean, so my point is that I grew up in a household that was a little bit risk averse and a little bit, boy, let's think through all the terrible things that could happen. And I know that I am not alone in having grown up in that. Dr. Mary, you who grew up in don't tip back in your chair. If you tip, you'll die. Like this.
Good advice.
Yep. Instant death. And I also know that we are not alone in that. So this notion of changes is part of life, part of nature. But we as human beings have decided that we want to do everything we can to avoid change.
You know,
I so never said that there were moose fatalities. Yes, you did. Yes, I think you did,
anyway,
Mother.
before this turns into something we weren't going to... Saying this out loud for the second time, because we talked about this earlier this morning, it suddenly dawned on me that I'm remembering that conversation, or that quote from one of the books we talked about. So, oh, you're afraid of taking a risk and having a change? Oh, you have the goals of dead people.
Oh, yeah, the woman whose TED Talk we talked about.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, change doesn't happen when you're dead. Otherwise, everything else is about the evolution of change. And so I think the interesting challenge to pose to you and to ourselves is, when you resist change, you are saying that you want to stay where you are and you don't want anything to evolve, and so you stay stuck. And when you give in to change, yes, could the change lead to something negative? Of course it could. Think of the people who got on an airplane September 11th, 2001 in Boston. going for business or pleasure or wherever they were going, they certainly did not expect the change that came that day for them. But that is the extreme rarity. Mostly change just leads to more of something or something different and better. Here's an example. I spent a lot of years dreading Quinn graduating from high school and going off to college because I was always pretty certain that Quinn would not stay local for college. So I anticipated all the ways that I would basically shrivel up and die. And guess what? While I miss Quinn, and I often think when I look into his bedroom, now our guest bedroom, I often think, oh, I miss the days when that boy was across the hall from us. I love my life now. We have an incredible life that would not look like this had the change not come.
Well, I suppose a part of that is also we both know Quinn has a fantastic life himself.
Absolutely,
So
yes.
that kind of takes the sting out of it.
But that's part of the joy of this change, is that the work that we put in with and for Quinn enabled him to go off and have his whole own amazing change as well. His life would not be as good if he were living across the hall from us. Our life would not be as good. That change was a beautiful transformation, and one that I absolutely dreaded for years. Years I gave to anticipating how terrible that change would be. I never one time considered, wow, think of what will change for the positive when he goes off, both for him and for us. So, if you want to stay exactly where you are, or you want to continue to sort of decline, then fight change. If you want to see what more is there, how might I explore and grow and evolve, then not just give in to change, but embrace it and look forward to it. I asked you something about, if you could go back, what would you say to yourself sitting on the couch 5 years ago about change? And what would you say to that?
God, I'd probably get down on my knees and beg a change, I think.
But you also said that you didn't really think you deserved a change, so you gave up because you thought it was hopeless. You thought there was no change.
Yeah, I actually thought, I was given a chance and I threw it away, so there was no change there.
I'm sorry, but that's just stupid. So do you hear how stupid that is? And I don't mean that.
Well, with hindsight, it's not the most sensible conversation I ever had with myself.
The reason that it's stupid is because it's just not true.
Well, tragically, at the time, it kind of made sense.
Yeah, well, let's keep in mind that you were operating from an addict's brain. So nonsensical things all made sense to you and vice versa. But there's no, there's no punch card for times you get to change. You don't reach the end and they say, well, that's all the change you got. I mean, maybe that's not true. Maybe death is where that ends. But as long as you are living, there is the potential to embrace the uncomfortable and change. Because Kiesta is right. Change is not comfortable. Often, we know where we are. We're very comfortable with where we are. But here's the truth. You might decide, I'm not going to change anything. That discounts everything operating around you. So we could decide our lives are perfect. We're going to freeze frame where we are right now. That discounts a car accident. That discounts a job promotion. That discounts winning the lottery. I mean, you'd have to play the lottery to win the lottery.
Have to buy a
but
ticket
whatever.
Yeah.
That discounts all of the good and all of the bad that can come at you, and more importantly, that will come at you. So, comfortable or not, you don't get to decide a lot of change coming at you. You didn't choose to get sober. Life gave you the opportunity to choose sobriety. That change came at you, and you didn't have a choice.
No.
Not in that moment.
No, I didn't.
And then you had the choice. Matt said something truly incredible the other day. When he was in the emergency room.
I am now going to try not to look surprised how this conversation
When he was in the
goes.
emergency room, the doctor said to him, you know, if it's not leukemia, it might be alcoholism. And Maz said to the doctor, I don't drink that much, so it's got to be leukemia.
Yeah, so rather than admit I may actually be an alcoholic, I sat through a bone biopsy.
Think about that. Think about that resistance to change. A bone biopsy. Let me promise you, I was in the room for that. You don't want one of those.
I didn't feel anything. I mean, the person who did it was incredibly good at their job, but the sound there was it was not good.
I felt a lot of things and it wasn't being done to me. Maz didn't choose that change, but that change came anyway. So don't you want to author your change? Don't you want to author your life if you can? Don't resist it. Lean into it. Choose it. And embrace being uncomfortable. And spend some time today thinking about all of the changes that you feared and how they've actually played out. Because most of them prove to be good.
And you know, if you're sitting there, you know, let's go back to let's have a theoretical moose in the picture again here. If you're sitting there struggling with an addiction and you think, well, I can't change, and you're afraid of what's going to happen next, then yeah, I'm not dismissing that. I won't even lie to you. It's going to be terrible. But what comes out of that, if you can weather the storm, you know, to be all nautical at you know.
You're mixing your metaphors.
Point the bow into the wave and keep going.
Yeah. The outcome on the other side of the discomfort is almost always going to be as good as where you are now and often better. Embrace change. Be okay with it. And be okay with not being okay with it and doing it anyway. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And we will be too. And I love my new robe.
She does.
Have an excellent day. We'll see you tomorrow.
See you
Sorry
tomorrow.
we were late. Bye.